cardiovascular system, and I go ahead and I add the descending aorta, which we know is also the abdominal aorta. Give it that nice bright red color to make it easy. And then go ahead and just add those basic trunks. What were the three branches we saw coming off the front?
Celiac,
And then the,
superior and inferior.
there you go, nice. Superior and inferior mesenteric. Just so that we can see the three that are coming off through there. Now remember, it may not look as clear on this table, but remember that these arteries, the superior mesenteric is going in this way, to the right lower quadrant. And this guy technically is gonna go this way, to the left lower quadrant. So even though we're seeing a little bit of go right down the middle, don't let that confuse you, okay? All right, so now we've got the celiac trunk. Let's go ahead and let's give it a nice little color. And we'll go ahead and we'll tag it. And do you remember what our three branches that come off of that were?
Left gastric.
So left gastric, and then yep. So left gastric, the splenic artery, and then our common hepatic artery, right? So if we have them right through there, let's go ahead and let's give them a little color. So the common hepatic is right through there. We'll give it a nice little bright green color. Now remember, the common hepatic is going to change names as soon as what happens?
Branches.
Yeah, branches. So what branch causes it to change names? Do you remember?
Proper.
And now it changes into the proper, but what comes off of it that makes it change name? Yeah, that gastroduodenal is what we're gonna see, okay? So celiac trunk right through here, right? Nice big thing in the middle. We said we're gonna have that nice left gastric go this way. We'd have a piggy tail that's gonna go to the spleen. And then we said going towards the side with the liver, we're gonna have that common hepatic artery. We said that off of that, we would get that nice little gastroduodenal artery. That was gonna then divide and give us what? Superior pancreaticoduodenal
Right gastroepiploic.
and right gastroepiploic artery. Okay. So let's go ahead and add that gastroduodenal. It's right there. Okay. So we see it here. It doesn't look as nice and neat as it does on the drawing or as it did on the models, right? So it's a little bit messier on the tables, and you're going to find that that's just kind of the way it is. So remember, the gastroomental is going to be going along the greater curvature of the stomach, right? So since it's going along with the greater curvature of the stomach, it's going to be a little bit lower than where we saw this left gastric, right? Let's go ahead and add in the proper hepatic artery. Okay, so the proper hepatic artery is going to continue. And we're going to see coming off that proper hepatic artery, that right gastric artery. So we can see that happening right through there. So if we turn it sideways a little bit, kind of get some depth, we can start seeing kind of the lesser curvature of the stomach, right where we see the artery. Let's change its color to that peach color and tag it through there. Now we set off the splenic artery, we were going to get what? Remember coming off the splenic artery, we had a branch that came over and joined together with this? Yeah, that's right, that left gastroepiploic artery. So let's add that on. Okay, so we can see that now. Now, let's go ahead and add the stomach onto it just so that we can see where the stomach is in relationship to these blood vessels. Okay. So along the lesser curvature of the stomach, okay, on the side where we would see that lower esophageal sphincter, we see the left gastric artery. But remember, as we kind of come to the side where we would see the pylorus, that's where we're going to find that right gastric artery. Now, same thing for the left and right gastroepiploic, right? So here, on the greater curvature of the stomach, we find that gastroepiploic. And remember, if you want to, you can call it the gastroomental. Doesn't really matter. And then on the side where we would find the fundus would be up here. But on that side is where we find that left gastroepiploic artery. And I also said that's how I would tag it, right? To try to keep everything straightforward and simple. As straightforward as it can be. Now we know that that proper hepatic artery is going to continue trucking, right? We're gonna get our hepatic artery, meaning our right and left hepatic artery. And we're gonna get our cystic artery coming off the right. So if we take the right hepatic artery, give it that color, tag it, we look just below it, we can see that we have our cystic. And the cystic artery is gonna be found going to what structure? Gallbladder, perfect, thank you. So if I were to add in the liver, unfortunately it would clog everything up and we wouldn't see those two vessels, so I kind of have to leave it off. Now remember, there's one last branch that we want to see, which is that superior pancreatico-duodenal artery. And if you look on the table right under the gastroduodenal, you see lots of choices for those pancreatico-duodenal arteries. What I'm going to suggest you do is just find the anterior superior pancreatico-duodenal artery and put that on there. But remember, on test day, all you have to tell me is pancreatico-duodenal artery, or excuse me, superior pancreatico-duodenal artery. Okay?
So if you had one in there, it would be that one? For the
Yeah,
test?
from the table,
Okay.
yeah. Everybody okay with the celiac branches? Or at least you can kind of see it and visualize it. You're gonna have to draw it a few times, you're gonna have to build it a few times on the Anatomage table, get comfortable with it. Remember that as we look at the base of the celiac trunk, we're also gonna see the stuff here, that ganglia. So it's kind of deep. Let me see if I can highlight it for us. Put a nice bright yellow color, just indicating that neurological tissue. Remember the big bulges that we see? These big bulges that we see right through there? That is the ganglia itself. And then remember the spider web looking stuff here? That's the plexus. Now on test day, I really don't care which one you pick. So if I tag that and you call it the celiac plexus, I'll take that. Okay, if you tag it and you call it the celiac ganglia, okay, I'll take it. Technically you might be wrong, but it's close enough, right? All this stuff's just right there together. And on your list, it just kind of says them all together too. Any questions about that celiac stuff through there? Everybody feeling okay with that? No? That's good. Let's keep moving then. Okay, let's go through and get rid of our digestive arteries. And when I do that, it gets rid of all the stuff that we just added. But if I wanted to add it all back on, all I have to do is hit that. Now, unfortunately, it pulls everything back up with it. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to go through and we're going to do our superior mesenteric here. And let's try to do this with our other cadaver that was up. I think Dr. Blazingame had this one up earlier. So if we look here, we can see highlighted that celiac trunk. And then just inferior to the celiac trunk on that anterior surface, we see that superior mesenteric artery, right? Remember, as we move down, we would see our jejunal and our ileal branches. We can add those on in a second, but if I add them on right now, it's just gonna be a big pile of mess, like covering everything, and we won't be able to see anything else. So coming off the superior mesenteric artery as it descends will be those jejunal branches, which we would see up here in this left upper quadrant, and then the ileal branches, which we'll see as it comes down almost to the terminal end of it. If we look right here, we can see that ileocolic artery right through there. And we may recall that from that ileocolic artery, we received our appendicular artery. Now, as you can see there, it's actually on the appendix, and that's how I would tag it on the test, okay? I'd have a tag in the artery. The card would say, name this artery. You'd say appendicular artery. Let's see if we can get the cecal artery on here. Assuming those are reasoning. Let's go with our anterior cecal artery. I think that'll be easiest to see. Guess we'll stick with the color scheme he has, and we'll tag it. Okay. So if we look right here on the cecum itself. Okay, now it's going to tell you anterior, it's going to give you posterior cecal arteries. We don't care, right? We just care cecal artery because that's what's on our list. Okay, so if you see an artery going into the cecum, then we're going to call it the cecal artery. Now, coming out right above here, where you see that iliocolic artery, you see that? There's our iliocolic artery. Just above that, at this next arrow, we see the right colic artery going to our ascending colon. Nice detail. Okay. So the next artery we see coming out above that is that middle colic artery. We said the middle colic artery was going to sort of follow the same orientation as the right colic artery, but we said that it would do something different, and that was it would go right up the middle. So even though one of the branches contributes to that portion of the marginal artery, it also fans out and goes straight up the middle. So the middle colic artery is the next one. So if we were looking from that first arrow to second arrow, we then add a third arrow as that next major branch right through there. That is that middle colic artery. Now we said each one of those contributes to this guy, which is the marginal artery itself. Okay. So all along the margin, you can envision the actual colon being surrounding all around there. We see that marginal artery. You okay with those branches of the superior mesenteric? Ish. Really, the only way to get comfortable with us is to spend time with it. I mean, I can show it to you, but you're gonna have to play with the tables and do it yourself. But at least this way you'll be clear on what you're looking at. Okay, so let's look at that inferior mesenteric artery. Okay. Move that off to the side. And the inferior mesenteric artery is this right through here. And we can see from that inferior mesenteric artery that at the most superior part of it, something comes off of it and goes directly to the right. So right there we get our right colic artery, or excuse me, I'm sorry, our left colic artery. We're on the left side. Sorry about that. So you see a part go directly over towards the descending colon, but you're also going to see one curve up and go up into the marginal artery as well. Don't let that confuse you. It's still part of the left colic. If I were going to tag it though, I'll tag it where you see the arrow pointed. The next thing we're going to see is down here as the sigmoid artery. So if you can sort of envision that sigmoid colon kind of taking its curve and turn right through here, right in the kind of, I guess the concavity of that curve right through there is where I typically will tag it, just so that you can see it right in there kind of cradling the sigmoid colon. So that's normally where I'll tag it. But remember, it's more substantial than that. I'm just telling you that that's where I tag it if I tag it on a test. Now there's one more branch that we said we needed to know from our inferior mesenteric artery, and that was this guy right through here, that superior rectal artery. So the very last branch is going to be that superior rectal artery. You guys okay with those anterior branches? Okay. So that only took us 14 minutes to kind of go through it, so we're going to keep moving, and we're going to see some of the other structures on here as well too. I'm going to pull up our other model. So let's go ahead and add in our renal arteries. Okay. So we have our left and right renal arteries right through there. Remember, right on top of the kidney is the what? What's on top of our kidneys?
The adrenals?
Yeah, the adrenal glands. Why is it not giving me kidney? Kids just kiss? That's weird. They do. Sometimes you look over there, just giving each other kisses. It's weird. Why is it? Why are you not? Give me this. Look over here. kidneys? Right there. Come on, man. So right on top of the kidneys, we're going to find that adrenal gland. Okay. Now we're going to look at all those other lateral branches that are going to come off of the abdominal aorta. So let's find that phrenic, or the inferior phrenic artery. Okay. So we see these two big guys right through here. Those are our left and right inferior phrenic artery. They both come from the same place, so I really don't care if you differentiate between left and right. The next thing we're going to see is our middle suprarenal artery. Now, don't get confused. There is a superior, there is an inferior suprarenal artery. Okay, but the only one that we care about is the middle, right? Because that's what's on our list. So that's the one we're going to concern ourselves with.
And that goes right to the adrenals.
That's right. Yeah.
Where is that one?
So this guy right through here. Now, as we continue moving down, we're going to see our gonadal vessels. This is female. I think it's a female. So generically, they're called your gonadal artery and vein. But if you're looking at a female cadaver, then it's going to be the ovarian artery. If it were a male cadaver, it would be the testicular artery. And if we look at it from the side, we can see clearly it's coming off the lateral aspect of our abdominal aorta.
On the exam, can we just write either one, or will it just be based on?
I would suggest just writing gonadal, and then you don't have to worry about what the set says. Now, right through there, we can see the lumbar arteries. And so I'm going to add the skeleton in just for a second so that we kind of see where they are in relationship. So right on top of the lumbar vertebra, the vertebral bodies, we can see the lumbar artery. So it's very deep. It's not going to be on top of any of the muscles or anything like that. It's going to be very deep. Now, if you look, you can see that it's actually coming off the posterior side of the descending aorta. Another artery that comes off the back side of that aorta is going to be that median sacral artery. Okay. It's pretty easy to identify because it's going to go right over the middle of the sacrum itself. And if we look, again, you normally are going to see, that's kind of weird. It's normally coming from the back side of it as well too. This looks like it's coming from inside the actual abdominal aorta. That's not right. Where the abdominal aorta ends, we get our iliac arteries. Okay. So on both sides, we have a common iliac artery. And then it further subdivides, and one becomes external as it stays external and then goes down under the inguinal ligament to become the femoral artery. The other one is going to go inside of the pelvis here and become the internal iliac artery. Is there anything on your list for the arteries that I missed? I can't think of anything right offhand.
Did you do the what was the difference between the middle suprarenal and then the renal arteries?
So the renal artery is going to go into the kidney.
I see. Okay.
Another name for your adrenal gland is suprarenal gland. So we commonly refer to it as the adrenal gland, but it's also known as the suprarenal. That's why you have a superior, middle, and inferior suprarenal artery that goes into it.
If we wrote middle adrenal artery, that would be wrong.
It technically would be wrong, yeah, but I'd probably let you get it. Too late now. Tighten up the reins here. Start being really mean.
Wait
You
till
guys
after
tell
the
everyone
neck.
under you guys that I'm really mean, that I can tighten it up next quarter. Of course, I
Wait-
probably
wait
won't have
till
any.
after head and neck.
Yeah. So jejunal vein. When we saw the ileal artery, there's an ileal vein. When we saw iliocolic, when we saw right colic, middle colic, left colic, sigmoid, all of those have corresponding veins that are traveling right along with it. The only difference is the orientation of that stuff. So let's take a look at it and see what that looks like. Let's get rid of this as well too. So we start with the portal vein, which may look a little intimidating, but it's not. One is here, which would be our left hepatic vein. And then there's another major branch that goes to the right lobe of the liver called the right hepatic vein. And then here is the hepatic portal vein itself. Now, if you wanted to, you could just call it portal vein, and that's okay. That portal vein is going to give us our next branches. So let's go ahead and pull up the splenic. And with the splenic vein, where do you think you would see it go? It would go to the spleen. The continuation of the portal vein that continues like this is going to be our superior mesenteric vein. Hanging off our splenic vein, we're going to find the inferior mesenteric vein. So let's add those on.
It's pretty close right there.
It's good memory. Not good enough, obviously. So again, these veins will travel exactly with the rest of them. So they start from a different place. They're not coming from the abdominal aorta, obviously. So they come from a different area, but this inferior phrenic vein is going to join up with the inferior phrenic artery as it passes through that mesocolon to get to our digestive arteries. The superior mesenteric vein, it actually is very close, like from the beginning, right with the superior mesenteric artery. So that's pretty easy to identify. So let me clear my drawings off there. Okay. So I'm not going to add in all those other branches, but I do want to show you this from this point of view just so that you understand like structurally what this is. Now the portal vein is draining all of our abdominal viscera, and it's going to go up to our liver essentially to detoxify it. One thing that's important to understand about this portal system is that it doesn't have any valves. So whenever I take a step and my muscles squeeze together, what do they do to all that venous supply? Pumps. But when my muscle relaxes, what happens to the blood? Does it go all the way back to my feet? It gets caught on a valve, okay? Those valves prevent the black flow of blood. So if we have no valves in this portal system, what does that mean for the patient who maybe has cirrhosis of the liver and the blood vessels are actually constricted? Is it possible that we're going to see that blood flow actually go back this way where it came from? And we'll start seeing the distension of all those blood vessels. So with someone who has severe hypertension or portal hypertension, if you raise their shirt up and you actually look at their tummy, you'll actually see lots of veins, like really swollen, like a bodybuilder's big veins or something like that, all over their stomach. We call that caput medusa, after Medusa with snake hair, right? And that's kind of what it looks like. If someone has heart failure, remember at the back of the liver, what big vessel is behind the liver? The inferior vena cava. That goes into the heart. So if there's something that's occluding the heart, like let's say we had some sort of tricuspid valve stenosis and blood couldn't get through the valve the way it's supposed to, that blood's just going to back up down into the liver, which is going to affect all the blood flow that's coming from the viscera, which again could lead to portal hypertension. So again, cardiovascular disease could cause it. Lung disease could cause it, because if there's a resistance to the fluid getting to the lungs, it's going to back up into the heart, then the liver, and then into the viscera. Yes, ma'am?
Can you clarify the difference between the portal vein and the hepatic portal?
There's really not. I mean, technically, if we wanted to, we could say before it enters the liver, it would be the portal vein.
Okay.
And as it enters there, we'd call it the hepatic portal vein. But really, it's all part of the portal system. So if you were to call it hepatic portal vein, cool. If you were to call it portal vein, that's cool. I'll take it. Sometimes you'll look at different atlases and it will call the exact same thing the portal vein, and then you'll look at another one, it calls the exact same location the hepatic portal vein. So we're not going to worry too much about it. So again, that portal system is draining everything. It's detoxifying all the stuff that's coming through our abdomen. But again, it is susceptible to lots of pressure changes or issues with pressure flow. Any questions about that portal system? I feel like we got through all that really, really fast. Is that everything on your list?
So far. There's a lot of other veins, but you said those all go.
They're
with
all
other
the same thing,
arteries,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, I guess because I'm being lazy. It's going really fast.
Yeah, that's it.
Is there anything on your list that you're